I, male, 35, just realized my boss, male 53, has been exploiting me for 18 months with false promises. What should I do? Throw away because my coworkers know my main. Long-time lurker, first-time poster here. So I've been working at this architectural firm, Clearwater Architectural Solutions, which is a fake name, for 7 years now. I joined right after finishing grad school, and honestly, it was a dream job at first. We're a mid-sized firm that does commercial projects all over the Pacific Northwest. The guy who hired me, let's call him Frank, was amazing. Really mentored me, taught me the business, gave me opportunities to grow. He saw something in me, I guess. But Frank retired 3 years ago, and this new guy, Trevor, male 53, took over as CEO. Everything started changing pretty much immediately. Trevor was all about aggressive growth strategies and market dominance, and all these business buzzwords that basically meant everyone had to work harder while the company tried to land bigger clients. I live in this one-bedroom apartment downtown that I'm barely ever at anymore. I have these houseplants that would have died ages ago if my neighbor Paula didn't water them sometimes. Thanks, Paula, if you're somehow reading this. I actually wanted to get a dog a couple years ago, but realized there was no way I could give it the attention it needed with my schedule. Anyway, I was doing pretty well at Clearwater, gradually moving up, getting better projects, developing relationships with clients. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm good at what I do, and clients generally like working with me. I always make sure to be responsive and solve problems quickly. About 18 months ago, 2 of our senior project managers left within like a month of each other. One got poached by a bigger firm, the other moved across the country for family reasons. And instead of replacing them, Trevor just distributed their workload among the rest of us. And somehow I ended up with like 70% of it. I didn't mind the extra work at first. I mean, I did, but I figured it was temporary and would look good for my career. But holy shit, the personal sacrifices have been insane. I literally had to miss my brother's wedding because we had a major deadline. He still brings it up at every family gathering. I've canceled 3 vacations I had planned and paid for. My doctor says my blood pressure is concerning for someone your age and prescribed me medication. I can't remember the last time I went on a date or even just hung out with friends without checking my phone every 5 minutes for work emails. I honestly thought Trevor was testing me for a promotion or something. Like, let's see if Daniel can handle this workload before we move him up. Stupid, right? But that's what I kept telling myself to justify the insane hours. Then about 6 months ago, Trevor called me into his office on a Friday evening. I remember it was like 7:30 p.m. and I was the only one still there besides him, as usual. He seemed really excited and started telling me about these 3 huge potential clients that were considering Clearwater for their projects, like game-changing clients. Trevor told me these contracts would put the company on a different level and we'd be competing with much bigger firms. When I mentioned our staffing issues and how we were already stretched thin, he said that was only temporary and we could hire more people once we landed these deals. He told me I was his go-to guy because nobody else had my skill set. When I pointed out I was already working 60+ hours a week, he promised me that once we landed these contracts, I'd get at least a 30% raise and a senior management position. He kept saying things about this being my path to the top and how careers are made this way, and asked me to trust him. So what did I do? I agreed, like an idiot. The next 6 months were absolute hell. I was consistently pulling 60, 70-hour weeks, sometimes 80+. I started keeping a toothbrush and change of clothes at the office because I was sleeping on the office couch so often. The cleaning staff would wake me up sometimes. It was pathetic. My morning routine became wake up, either at home or more likely the office, go to the gym next door to shower because it was more convenient than going home, grab a Monster Ultra, the white one, I can't even look at them now without feeling sick, and get back to work. Lather, rinse, repeat. But here's the thing, I actually pulled it off. We landed all 3 contracts. Norman Industries wanted a new corporate campus, $3.8 million contract. Mitchell Development needed designs for a luxury condo project, $4.2 million. Dean Construction's downtown mixed-use development, $5.7 million. That's $13.7 million in new business that I was primarily responsible for securing. I'm not saying I did it alone. We have talented people at the firm, but I was the main point of contact. I did all the presentations, handled all the client concerns, stayed up countless nights perfecting proposals, etc. I was so relieved when the last contract was signed. Finally, I could get that raise, that promotion. maybe even take a vacation. I scheduled a meeting with Trevor as soon as the ink was dry on the Dean contract. I prepared for that meeting too. I brought documentation of all the project milestones, talking points about my specific contributions, even a little speech about how excited I was to move into senior management. I actually rehearsed it like a fucking dork. When I met with Trevor, he started by congratulating me on the great team effort. When I brought up what we discussed 6 months ago, he gave me a confused look and acted like he didn't know what I meant. I reminded him about the 30% raise and senior management position he promised once we landed these contracts, and he actually laughed a little. He claimed I had misunderstood and that he meant I'd be considered for advancement in the future. I told him he specifically promised me those things, and it was the only reason I agreed to take on these projects. He got awkward and offered me a 5% performance bonus, claiming we had budget constraints because of staffing up for the new projects. When I pointed out we just secured contracts worth over $13 million, he got defensive and said everyone works hard and I'm not special because we're a team. The meeting ended with him telling me to be realistic about my value to the company and that we could revisit my compensation at my annual review, which is 7 months away. I walked out of that office in complete shock. I still can't believe it. 7 years at this company, 18 months of killing myself with overwork, 6 months of literal hell, for nothing. He just straight up lied to my face. The crazy thing is, I just got a LinkedIn message yesterday from Victoria, the CEO of Apex Design Group, one of our competitors. She wants to know if I'd be interested in discussing opportunities. I haven't responded yet. I honestly don't know what to do. Part of me wants to just quit on the spot, but these clients are counting on me, and I've put so much into these projects. Another part wants to confront Trevor again. Maybe with HR present this time, but our HR director Heidi is basically Trevor's puppet, so I don't think that would help. Sorry for the novel. I'm just devastated and furious and tired. So fucking tired. Edit. Thanks for all the replies so far. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, I have the original conversation about the raise promotion documented, but only in my own notes I took right after the meeting. Nothing in writing from Trevor. 2. Several people asked about my contract. There's no non-compete clause. I checked. 3. For those suggesting I've been naive, yeah, no shit, I see that now. I genuinely believed Trevor was grooming me for advancement. Clearly, I was just being used. 4. To the person who asked about the clients, they specifically request me for meetings and communications. One of them, Norman, has straight up told me he wouldn't have signed with us if I wasn't leading the project. Now for the first update. I just confronted my boss, and I quit. Holy shit. It's been an absolute whirlwind since my last post a few weeks ago. First, thank you all for the comments and advice. I honestly wasn't expecting so many responses. So after I posted here, I spent like 3 days just in a complete fog. I kept going to work and pretending everything was normal. Spoiler, it wasn't, while trying to figure out what to do. I actually scheduled another meeting with Trevor, thinking maybe I hadn't been clear enough the first time. Honestly, I don't know what I was expecting. Like maybe he'd suddenly realize he screwed me over and fix everything. I'm such an idiot sometimes. That second meeting went even worse than the first one. Trevor basically told me I needed to be a team player and that everyone makes sacrifices and some other corporate BS. When I specifically brought up the promise of the 30% raise and senior management position, he literally said, "I think you misunderstood our conversation," and something about how I need to work on my communication skills. He was totally twisting things around. I left his office feeling like I was losing my mind. I even tried going to HR. Lol, I know, rookie mistake. Our HR director, Heidi, sat there nodding sympathetically for 20 minutes and then told me I should be grateful for the opportunity to prove myself and that patience is important for career growth. I literally had to walk out before I said something I'd regret. Meanwhile, my brother kept calling me every other day, super worried, because apparently I looked like death at his kid's birthday party. My parents were giving me completely contradictory advice. My dad kept saying, never leave a stable job in this economy, while my mom was like, don't let anyone take advantage of you. The worst part was I started having these random panic attacks. I couldn't sleep, couldn't focus, and was basically running on energy drinks and pure rage. A bunch of coworkers kept checking on me and saying stuff like, you seem stressed and you should take a day off. I thought they were just being nice, but looking back, I think they could all see I was having a breakdown while I was completely oblivious. So remember that LinkedIn message from Victoria at Apex Design Group I mentioned? I finally responded and agreed to meet her for coffee. I honestly just thought it would be a casual networking thing. I had no intention of actually changing jobs. I was still in this weird loyalty mindset with Clearwater, even after everything. Meeting Victoria completely blindsided me. She started by saying she'd been following Clearwater's projects and was impressed with the recent contract wins. Norman, Mitchell, Dean. I did that dumb thing where I was like, oh, it was a team effort, and she just looked at me and asked straight up what my role was in securing those clients. I reluctantly admitted I was the primary contact and project lead for all three. Then she just casually mentioned she knew about the hours I'd been working, and I got all defensive saying, it's just a busy period. And she gave me this look that was basically, cut the BS. Then she straight up asked if I was being compensated fairly for my contributions. I hesitated for way too long, and then admitted the promised raise never happened. She didn't even act surprised. Then out of nowhere, she offered me a position at Apex with a 40% salary increase and normal working hours. Like 40%. And when I expressed concern about my clients at Clearwater still being stupidly loyal, she assured me she wasn't asking me to bring clients, just my talent. I was completely shocked. I told her I needed time to think about it. I spent the weekend researching Apex, checking reviews from employees, and making sure there wasn't a non-compete clause in my contract. There wasn't. After a lot of thinking and approximately 47 pros-cons lists, I decided to accept Victoria's offer. It was honestly one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I've been at Clearwater for 7 years. It was my first real job out of grad school, but I kept coming back to how Trevor had treated me and realized I would never be valued there the way I deserved. So I wrote up my resignation letter, giving the standard 2 weeks notice, and handed it to Trevor first thing Monday morning. The look on his face was interesting. At first, he didn't even seem to care. He just skimmed the letter and said these things happen, like it was no big deal. Then about 20 minutes later, he called me back to his office and was furious, demanding to know where I was going. When I told him I was joining Apex, he actually laughed and said I was making a huge mistake. Then by the end of the day, he came to my desk with this belated counteroffer, a 15% raise, but still no promotion. When I politely declined, he got really cold and walked away without saying anything. I want to be clear. I have no hard feelings toward Trevor or Clearwater. Okay, that's a lie. I'm still pissed about how he lied to my face, made me miss my brother's wedding, ruined my health, lied to me when I asked for what was promised, and then had the audacity to act betrayed when I resigned. But professionally speaking, no hard feelings. Then something unexpected happened. Somehow word got out that I was leaving. I suspect Trevor told people, and Norman from Norman Industries called me directly. This was super awkward because I wasn't planning to tell any clients until my last day, and I definitely wasn't trying to take them with me. Norman told me he'd heard I was leaving Clearwater. When I confirmed it, he asked who would be handling his project going forward, and I professionally assured him the transition would be smooth. Then he mentioned some frustrations he'd been having with recent communication issues with Clearwater, which I knew about because I was constantly fixing Trevor's mistakes. He directly asked where I was going next, and I hesitantly mentioned Apex. Then he said something about being unhappy with Clearwater's recent price increases and lack of transparency. News to me, apparently Trevor had been raising rates without improving service. Then Norman asked if Apex would be interested in bidding on future projects. I was super careful with my response, saying only that Apex works on similar projects, but I wasn't there to solicit business. He laughed and said he'd be making some calls, regardless of my diplomatic response. Similar conversations happened with Mitchell and Dean within days. I didn't initiate any of these conversations. They all reached out to me after hearing I was leaving. When Trevor found out about these client conversations, I have no idea how, he completely lost it. He called me into his office and accused me of poaching clients and sabotage and threatened legal action. I calmly explained that the clients had contacted me, not the other way around, and that I had been extremely professional and hadn't solicited any business. My last 2 weeks at Clearwater were a nightmare. Trevor restricted my access to client files, told me not to contact any clients, and I heard from a coworker that he was spreading rumors about my disloyalty to colleagues. The same HR director who told me to be patient about my career now wouldn't even make eye contact with me. My last day was Friday. No goodbye party, no card, nothing. Trevor barely acknowledged me. I turned in my laptop and keycard and just left. 7 years of my life, just done. I start at Apex tomorrow, Monday, and I'm a complete mess of emotions. Part relief, part anxiety, part excitement, part guilt. I feel bad for my colleagues who are still at Clearwater dealing with Trevor, especially this junior architect Casey who I've been mentoring. He texted me saying things are really uncomfortable after I left. I don't know if I made the right decision, but I do know I couldn't stay at a place that clearly didn't value me after everything I'd sacrificed. Edit. Wow, this blew up while I was packing up my apartment. To answer some common questions. 1. No, I never explicitly told any clients to follow me to Apex. That would be unethical and potentially illegal. They reached out to me after hearing I was leaving. 2. Yes, I documented everything in those final 2 weeks. Every conversation, every email, every restriction Trevor placed on me. My lawyer said this was smart given Trevor's threats. 3. For those asking if I'll update after starting at Apex, yes, I'll probably post again in a few weeks once I've settled in. 4. Several people asked if I'm in touch with any Clearwater colleagues. Yes, a few have reached out to wish me well. Casey and I are getting dinner next week. 5. To the person who asked if I regret not getting Trevor's promises in writing, yes, 1,000 times yes. Lesson learned the hard way. Now for the second update. It's been a month since I left Clearwater and started at Apex. My first month at Apex has been weird, but like good weird. The biggest shock is that Victoria, my new boss, is super strict about everyone working normal hours. When I stayed at my desk until 6:30 p.m. during my second week, she questioned why I was still there. When I told her I was trying to get ahead on a project, she told me that's what tomorrow is for. I actually got a lecture about maintaining work-life balance, which is just, I don't even know how to process that after 18 months of sleeping on Clearwater's office couch. The whole setup here is just completely different. We get catered lunches twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's this little courtyard area where people actually take lunch breaks. Like people stop working and go outside and talk about non-work things for a whole hour. It's bizarre. My first week, I kept working through lunch, and Victoria pulled me aside and told me it was concerning behavior. Victoria has already put me in charge of 2 really interesting projects that match my expertise perfectly. One is a sustainable mixed-use development, and the other is a corporate campus with tons of green spaces. Both clients seem great so far, and I'm actually getting to do the kind of work I love without being crushed by impossible deadlines. The weirdest part is having free time again. I joined this recreational basketball league that plays on Wednesday nights, something I literally couldn't have imagined doing a few months ago. I've reconnected with friends I haven't seen in months because I was always working. My buddy Mark literally asked if I'd gotten out of prison because he hadn't seen me in so long. I'm even looking at rescue dogs. There's this shelter near my apartment, and I've gone twice now to meet potential puppers. There's this one 3-year-old lab mix named Charlie who I really connected with. I'm going back this weekend to see him again and might finally pull the trigger. Side note, any advice on first-time dog ownership? I've never had one as an adult. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows. I still feel super guilty about some of my former colleagues at Clearwater, especially Casey, male 29. He's this really talented junior architect I was mentoring before I left. We've texted a bit, and it sounds like things are getting worse there. Trevor is apparently in full panic mode and taking it out on everyone. Casey said they've had to work weekends to try to keep up with the Norman, Mitchell, and Dean projects, the 3 big ones I was handling. I also feel kind of uncertain about Victoria sometimes. She's definitely professional and respectful, but she keeps this distance that feels weird after working so closely with Trevor. Trevor was constantly texting me at all hours and calling me his right-hand man, while exploiting me, obviously. But Victoria maintains these really clear boundaries. She doesn't contact me after hours unless it's a genuine emergency. At first I thought maybe she didn't like me or was disappointed in my work, but I'm slowly realizing this is just what a healthy professional relationship looks like. Still getting used to it, to be honest. I've been super careful not to contact any Clearwater clients. I haven't reached out to a single one. Victoria gave me a whole orientation about ethics and client relationships when I started, and Apex has a strict policy against soliciting clients from previous employers. I've been focusing on learning Apex's systems and meeting my new colleagues instead. But then something unexpected happened about 3 weeks after I started. I was sitting at my desk working on some renderings when Norman from Norman Industries called me. He's one of Clearwater's biggest clients. I was completely caught off guard. Norman told me he got my number from Victoria when he called looking for me. He explained that since I left Clearwater, communication on their project had completely fallen apart. Trevor had been dismissive of their concerns and had missed 2 scheduled meetings already. Norman then asked if Apex would be interested in taking over their corporate campus project. I explained that I couldn't personally solicit Clearwater's clients for ethical and legal reasons. Norman insisted he wasn't being solicited. He was making a business decision because Clearwater wasn't delivering anymore. I suggested arranging a meeting with Victoria, which he agreed to. I was still processing that conversation when the same thing happened with Mitchell the next day, and then Dean 2 days after that. All 3 said similar things, that Clearwater's communication and project management had gotten worse since I left, and Trevor wasn't addressing their concerns. I was super careful with all these conversations. I immediately talked to Victoria about each one, and we even consulted Apex's lawyer to make sure we handled everything properly and legally. The lawyer advised documenting all client-initiated contact and maintaining professional communications without bad-mouthing Clearwater. Meanwhile, I was hearing through Casey and a couple other former colleagues that Clearwater was really struggling with these projects. Trevor apparently told everyone I had sabotaged the files before leaving, completely untrue. I documented everything meticulously and created detailed transition plans. He was also threatening legal action against me, which my lawyer assured me was groundless since I hadn't violated any contracts or solicited clients. Things really escalated when all 3 clients formally terminated their contracts with Clearwater over a 2-week period and signed with Apex instead. The total contract value was approximately $13.7 million, which represented nearly 60% of Clearwater's active projects. I felt both relieved and worried. These were decisions the clients made based on Clearwater's performance issues, but I knew Trevor would blame me entirely. And then, chaos. Complete chaos. About 2 months after I left Clearwater, so a few weeks ago, I woke up on a Saturday morning to find 22 missed calls on my phone from the night before. 22. They were from Trevor, 8 calls, Heidi from HR, 3 calls, various former colleagues, 6 calls, Clearwater's lawyer, 2 calls, and even Trevor's wife, Kara, 3 calls, who I've met maybe twice at company events. I started listening to the voicemails, and it was like watching someone's mental breakdown in real time. The first messages from Trevor were all legal threats about client poaching and claims of having evidence of my unethical behavior. They don't, because there wasn't any. But by the 8th call, he was begging me to talk to him because the company was in serious trouble. Messages from colleagues revealed all 3 major clients had officially terminated their contracts and Clearwater was in panic mode. Another mentioned Trevor had called an emergency weekend meeting and was in complete meltdown. I also saw an email from Norman explaining their decision was based entirely on Clearwater's performance issues after I left, not because of any solicitation on my part. I immediately forwarded this and similar emails from the other clients to my lawyer as documentation. As I was going through all this, my phone rang again. Trevor, call number 23. After careful consideration and texting my lawyer, I declined the call. The aftermath has been pretty dramatic. Apex is thriving with the new clients. I'm getting properly compensated, working reasonable hours, like I actually get to go home at 5:30 most days, and my blood pressure is already improving according to my doctor. Charlie the dog is now officially mine and currently snoring next to me on the couch as I type this. Meanwhile, Casey told me Clearwater had to lay off 30% of its staff last week. The board of directors is apparently furious with Trevor, and there are rumors he might be replaced. And then the most unexpected thing happened. Yesterday, Trevor emailed me directly with an offer to return to Clearwater with double my previous salary and a partnership stake. Double, plus a signing bonus and all these other perks. I was literally laughing as I read it because there is no way in hell I would ever go back to working for him. I sent a polite but firm decline, explaining that no amount of money would compensate for the lack of respect and work-life balance. Didn't hear back, which is probably for the best. So that's where things stand now. I'm happy at Apex, but I still have complicated feelings about everything. I feel guilty about the layoffs at Clearwater, even though I know rationally that Trevor's mismanagement, not my departure, was the root cause. Some former colleagues have reached out to congratulate me, but others seem to blame me for the company's troubles, which hurts. I never intended to cause Clearwater's downfall. I just wanted to be valued for my contributions and have some semblance of a life outside work. Is that really too much to ask? Edit. Wow, Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions. 1. Yes, Charlie is a good boy and I will pay the dog tax. Here's a pic of him with his favorite toy. Imagine a cute lab mix here. 2. For those asking if I'm worried about legal action from Trevor, my lawyer assures me they have no case. I didn't violate any contracts, and all client contact was initiated by them, not me. 3. To the people suggesting I should have taken Trevor's offer and then immediately quit. That's tempting, but I'm trying to maintain some professional integrity here. 4. Several people asked about Casey. Yes, I've been helping him with his resume and have already recommended him for an opening at Apex. Victoria is interviewing him next week. 5. About the basketball league. We're terrible, but it's fun. I hadn't played since college and I'm so out of shape, it's embarrassing.